Here's the 6 best strength exercises all youth athletes should be performing. Yo, what's going on guys? Chris Barner here, Overtime Athletes. And for today's video, I want to go over like 6 exercises. There's so many different movements that we perform with our youth athletes. But when it comes to developing kids, here's like 6 non-negotiables that we add into our program every single time. So the first one is going to be a bodyweight exercise. We call this the decel step up. So this is going to develop unilateral or single leg strength with your youth athlete. There's a series of progressions we can go through. We could start with a really small box and start to kind of get the height up, right, to about knee level, if you will. And then we can eventually move to where the athlete is performing maybe a pistol squat. We can also add maybe a little bit of resistance, but we always start off in either the bench size or a little bit smaller. And all the athlete is gonna do is gonna focus on controlling through the single leg eccentrically. So what I wanna see here is the athlete's gonna stand lateral or on the bench, and then they're gonna focus on being able to essentially sink the pocket straight down into their hips. So think about my pockets going straight down, not back, right? Not too far forward, just straight down. And they're gonna try to kiss the heel, right, of their opposite foot and come back under control. So we do this in a very slow, methodical, controlled fashion so the athlete is able to support that with a single leg. I can't tell you enough. It's so much more important for them to develop the ability to decelerate and control on the way down as opposed to them just collapsing and then trying to drive up off that leg. It's not a step up in that regard. That's why we call it a decel step up. So it's a huge number one that we focus on. And like I said, depending on where the athlete's at, you could start on a smaller box and they can focus on that small range of motion. We could build up to a very higher box. And then the goal is to get them to perform it maybe on the ground in what we consider like a pistol-like squat. The next one that I absolutely love to work with athletes, number 2, is gonna be a Nordic hamstring curl. Now, when I was growing up, we call these buddy hamstring curls. This is something we did in, football practice. It carried over into high school. When we were a kid, we used to hold, used to have a partner and they would hold your heels. Now they obviously have these apparatus where they lock your legs in. If you have the ability to work with one of those, that's great. But I think it's crucial for kids to start developing a good, strong hamstrings, especially when they're sprinting, jumping, things of that nature. So all the athlete's essentially gonna do, here, like I said, I have this machine where it locks my heels into place. I have a pad on my knees. If you were to do this at home with your kid, you're essentially just gonna hold their feet down. What you're gonna have them do is they're gonna push their hips forward. You wanna stay from your head, the crown of your head, all the way down to your knee in a straight line. They're gonna have their hands here to be able to support them, to catch them. And you just wanna focus, especially depending on the level of your athlete, but you wanna really focus on being able to control through the entire range of motion down. So when I start off, I don't even focus on being able to lift up. I just have them focus on being able to lock it up, support them all the way down, and they can walk themselves back in. Now, as they progress, if you wanna use your hands, come down, push off a little bit and pull themselves back up. But the goal is for us to be able to progress where they don't even have to use their hands and they can come all the way down and all the way up. These are great. You can mix up the rep ranges. Again, that's kind of the typical fashion of progression that I use, but Nordic hamstrings, absolutely must have in all kids programming. That's number 2. All right, number 3, we're switching over to the upper body. And not just your standard push-up. What I like is actually taking a page out of CrossFit. It's actually the hand release push-up, and let me get into why. So a hand release push-up, athlete is essentially, shoulder width apart, and what we wanna tell them to do is drive those elbows in a push-up fashion, focus on the down phase first, right? Being able to come down to their chest, elbows close to their body, release their hands or lift them up, and then be able to push back up. Now, the reason why I love this when teaching youth athletes is because if you've ever seen majority of these kids who start to try to do push-ups, especially when they're first learning out and they don't really know how to perform it, what you're gonna see is they're gonna get really wide, right? They can get funky, they can lift their hips in the air, but you'll see those elbows flare out and they really can't get that much range of motion. So think about it if you're on a bench press. It's like you pushing like this. You're not putting them in an advantageous position. So by doing a hand release, I can really have them focus on technique while still getting able to perform that horizontal push in the correct fashion that I want to see. So by having them go shoulder width, like I said, focus on coming down, elbows in tight. By releasing, it's just a simple cue, simple progression for them to not focus on getting that wide and flaring out those elbows. So hand release push-up is a must-have in our programming. That is going to be number 3. All right, so number 4, staying on upper body, it's going to be a pull-up, but it's not just any pull-up variation, it's the actual neutral grip pull-up. If you have the ability to be able to perform this with your athletes, great. I know a lot of times it's just usually a straight bar. For me, I like to teach with the neutral grip. From that grip position, it's just more advantageous. What I notice is, compared to a regular pull-up or chin-up, a lot of the kids find themselves in that neutral grip position, being able to get a little bit more repetitions, which means we can actually get a little bit more volume over time. It's just a more advantageous grip for those athletes to be able to perform a pull-up. That's all it is. The best way to get good at pull-ups is by doing more pull-ups. You know what I mean? It's not about all these different lat pull downs, all these other different things. You can do these almost every single training session. I remember, just having a pull-up bar, just go outside, try to get as many as you can. You do it multiple times a day. Hey, hop up, how many can you do? Right? Obviously from a programming setting, it's just being able to do them in a sub-maximal, meaning like as many reps as they can or as close to many reps as they can every single time. So the biggest thing is just coming at it from a dead hang with your arms completely extended, right? Feet straight out ahead. I don't like to cross the feet and really kind of separate the hips here. I want to focus on pinning my feet together all the way from a dead hang, pulling that chin above the bar. Obviously, there's different progressions as far as like coming down, slow and under control. There's different things that you could do like that, but the biggest thing is just volume here. Put them in an advantageous position, get them to pull their chin above the bar, and get them to do as many reps as you can. Think about it over a week or a month. How many pull-ups can you do? Let's say we got 20 in last month, let's shoot for 25 this month. That's how you should be tallying it and focusing on volume to get that relative upper body strength. That's number 4, neutral grip pull-up. All right, so for number 5, we're switching back to the lower body. It's going to be working that squat pattern, and one that we absolutely love to introduce, especially when it comes to introducing resistance to your squat, it's gonna be the goblet squat. So you can utilize a kettlebell, you can have your athlete use a dumbbell, you can have your athletes use a med ball, whatever kind of resistance. They can use a sandbag, they can use a plate, it doesn't matter. Essentially what you're doing is you're being able to hold it right here in front. Now by loading from a front, what you're doing is you're having that athlete and you're teaching that athlete to stay upright. So they're forcing that thoracic extension and you're actually working their spine because that load wants to pull them forward. So as we're training the squat pattern, we're actually training the core or that spine as well. All those intricate muscles, intrinsic muscles to be able to stay upright. So when it comes to the squat pattern, we'll have different variations. We go from anywhere from narrow grip, right? And focused on range of motion, deep range of motion all the way down. And then we'll kind of come out to about shoulder width where they're really focused on sitting their hips back, full squat all the way up and down. Now, if an athlete doesn't know how to squat, let's say for instance, they're performing a squat and they drive their knees forward, we can easily take that same resistance, tell them to go squat to box. Let's say you have a bench or a box, you could push your hips back. I want you to touch the bench, come back up, holding that resistance right here in front of you. So this is a must do in your youth athletes development. All right, for the 6th and final one, we're finishing off with the lower body. One that we absolutely hammer with all of our younger athletes is going to be utilizing a sled. Now, there's a lot of different variations when it comes to the sled and the amount of weight that you push. The biggest thing that I would say when you're developing your younger athlete is get them to a load that they can push, but make it heavy, right? Make sure, imagine that at 25 yards, if you're doing it for 25 yards, around that 15 to 20 yard marker, it becomes pretty tough. The 2 variations that I absolutely love are going to be the high handle march, right? Where the athlete is basically pushing and they're focused on a big step and driving that sled as far as they possibly can. So It's not a run, and you don't want them to get short and choppy. You want to think the biggest range of motion, biggest step that they possibly can, step through that whole one into the next one. The second one that I love to do is going to be the drag, right? So you can either have an apparatus like this, where we essentially have our athlete place this around their waist, so they could sit into it. Before we had this, you could just buy an easy toe strap and essentially have the athlete hold it. In any event, the biggest thing is you want them to sink the hips down and be able to drag that backwards. And the same load applies. Go heavy from a drag in reverse, push it in a marching-like fashion and a heavy load, go anywhere 20 to up to 40 yards, and continuously put that in week over week with your youth athletes, and they will continue to develop. All right, there it is, guys. There's your 6 best strength exercises. All kids should be performing, all youth athletes should be hammering those inside their training, every single training phase, every single program that they're doing. These are staples that we perform here in our facility when we develop our youth athletes. If you're looking for a full youth training program, you can check out the link down below, and I'll talk to you guys next time.